Okay, live stream is up. Sergeants, can you please start your recordings?
Recording to the computer started.
According to the cloud, all set.
Thank you. Sergeant Sadowski, would your opening statement, please?
Yes. Good morning and welcome to today's remote New York City Council hearing of the Committee on Public Housing. At this time, would all council members and council staff please turn on their video? To minimize disruption, please place electronic devices on vibrate or silent mode. If you wish to submit testimony, you may do so at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Once again, that is testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you, Chair. We are ready to begin.
Good morning, and thank you for attending today's hearing by the Committee on Public Housing. I am Councilmember Alika Ampry-Samuel, and I chair the Public Housing Committee. This morning, I am joined by Councilmember Diaz Sr., Councilmember Riley, Councilmember Traeger, Councilmember Jonai, Councilmember Feliz, and Councilmember Van Bramer. Nearly 2 years ago, in January 2020, this committee convened a hearing on the very same topic we're here today to discuss: NYCHA's preparedness for the heat season. The adequate provision of heat and hot water has been a persistent issue at NYCHA. And today the committee is interested to learn what progress NYCHA has made since it entered into the HUD agreement and whether NYCHA has delivered on its duty to provide decent, livable housing for its residents. The laws of New York City require that property owners provide adequate heat and hot water to tenants. This means hot water 365 days a year. A minimum internal temperatures must be maintained from October 1st through May 31st. These requirements apply to all property owners, private and public. Today, we are talking about NYCHA's 713 boilers, 1,492 vacuum tanks, and 847 instantaneous water heaters. In 2020, the Federal Monitor approved a heating plan which established policies to monitor heating metrics and create a 24/7 heat desk which would dispatch staff to correct deficiencies during the heat season within a maximum of 48 hours. Today, we expect to hear the progress of these policies and the real-time assessment regarding the success of its implementation. This is not supposed to be an aha or got you moment at all. Best practices evaluate benchmarks, assess and reassess progress. Those are the goals of reducing disruption to heat service and faster restoration that is being met. And if not, what can we do differently? This is the time to be introspective and transparent, as the 48-hour maximum outage time is set to decrease a 24-hour maximum outage time by 2024. This committee expects an update on the implementation of this plan and whether it has succeeded in meeting its goals thus far. In addition to hearing about heat and hot water service, the committee expects an update on the many reports of service interruptions to gas and electricity at NYCHA developments, especially since 2012 Superstorm Sandy. Thousands of residents at a time have struggled with reoccurring utility outages. Some resident families rely on generators to keep their lights on, and others are spending as many as several months waiting for gas service to be restored. And I cannot count how many times I've received calls from residents requesting hot plates and asking that million-dollar question, how long will my gas be out? To which I never have an answer. There are policies in place, so we know what the answer should be in theory, but what is actually happening in practice? When outages are classified as chronic and thousands of residents are making identical complaints, we cannot say that these are isolated events or out of the norm. This is the norm and it's always unacceptable. So how will we do better? As I've said over and over and over again, these conditions will be unacceptable for any New York City landlord. And so there's no reason why we should consider them acceptable for NYCHA. As always, the goal today is to listen, first and foremost, to our NYCHA residents and to learn how the City Council can improve the provisions of essential services to our families and neighbors that are residents of the New York City Housing Authority. With that, I want to quickly thank committee staff, Audrey Sun, Ricky Chale, Jose Condi, and Luke Zangalier, and my staff, Naomi Hopkins and Everton Smith. And I will now turn it over to our committee counsel, Audrey Sun, to go over some housekeeping matters for today's hearing. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. I'm Audrey Sun, counsel to the City Council's Committee on Public Housing. Before we proceed, I want to remind everyone that you will be on mute until you are called on to testify. When it's your turn, I'll call your name and you will be prompted to unmute. So we'll begin the hearing with testimony from the administration. But before that, I would just like to acknowledge that we've also been joined by Councilmember Ayala. So now we'll turn to testimony from the administration. A reminder to all council members to please use the Zoom raise hand function if you would like to ask any questions. After the administration, we will hear from any members of the public who are present to testify. I will now administer the oath to the administration, which is represented by Brian Honan, Javier Amoldovar, Vito Mustachulo, and Calcedonia Bruno. After I say the oath, please wait for me to call your name and respond one by one. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? Vito Mustachulo?
I do.
Javier Amoldovar?
Audrey, we are having trouble getting some of our staff in the room. Javier, Cal, a few others have been having trouble with the link. So they're not here right now.
Okay, are you able to proceed with testimony without them, or do you need a minute for them to be able to join?
I think if we can.
Joined.
Okay, if Cal just joined, then we just have to get Javier, but we'll work on it while the general manager reads testimony, and then we can move on from there. Okay.
Okay, so I'll just continue to administer the oath to those present, and then once the rest of NYCHA is represented, I'll re-administer the oath to those who join the group.
Thank you.
Okay, remind me whose names I've called already.
Javier was the last one you did.
Okay. Calcedonia Bruno?
Present, I do.
And Brian Honan?
Yes.
Thank you very much. You may begin when ready.
Okay. Chair Alika Ampry Samuel, members of the Committee on Public Housing, and other distinguished members of the City Council. Good morning. I am Vito Mustachulo, NYCHA's Chief Operating Officer. I am pleased to be joined by Javier Amoldovar, Director of NYCHA's Heating Management Services Department, Calcedonia Bruno, Vice President of Operational Analysis and Contract Management, and other members of NYCHA's team. NYCHA's more than 12,000 employees show up to work every day with one goal in mind: to provide our residents with a safe, decent, and supportive home. I appreciate this opportunity today to discuss our efforts to deliver heat and hot water to our residents, along with other basic services. This is at the core of our responsibilities as a landlord, and we know how impactful service interruptions can be for our residents. With the support of Mayor de Blasio over the past several years, we have made significant improvements to the way we deliver services to our residents. Together with our Blueprint for Change strategies to transform the authority, these operational changes are enabling us to better serve our residents and improve their quality of life. That includes our work to improve heating services. As a result of these efforts, we have reduced the time it takes to restore heat outages by nearly 20%, from 8.8 hours in 2018-2019 to 7.3 hours in 2020-2021, and brought down the number of outages by 52%. In addition to Mayor de Blasio's support, NYCHA's transformation is guided by the HUD agreement signed in January of 2019, as well as our partnership with our residents, the Federal Monitor, HUD, and others in the community, including members of the council. In December of 2019, Federal Monitor Bart Schwartz approved our heating action plan, which we developed in partnership with his team and in accordance with the requirements of the HUD agreement. The action plan outlines the procedures and protocols we follow to prevent and respond to outages in our aging heating plants. It also details how we communicate with residents about outages and repairs, provide warming centers in certain scenarios, and investigate outages that cannot be restored within 12 hours. We posted the action plan on our website, informed resident leadership about it, and trained staff. We also created individual heating action plans for every development in our portfolio and posted them on our website. These individual plans acknowledge that each development has its own unique challenges, which need to be addressed. For instance, Baruch Houses is in a flood zone and is susceptible to constant flooding, and its boilers have exceeded their life expectancy, requiring frequent welding. This development is getting a new direct steam station that's elevated nearly 15 feet above sea level, as well as other improvements. It should be noted that many of Baruch's outages last year were planned for construction-related work, and that the rate of outages there has declined. As another example, in line with the action plan for Whitman Houses, we replaced the development's mobile boiler with a new boiler plant, instantaneous hot water heaters, and vacuum tanks. In accordance with the HUD agreement, we are required to restore all outages within an average of 12 hours, faster than what is required for a private landlord, with 85% of outages having to be resolved within 24 hours. In the last heat season, we met this requirement by resolving 92% of total outages within 12 hours. Fewer than 1% of outages, one outage actually, lasted longer than 24 hours. No heating outages lasted more than 48 hours, compared to one outage in 2019-2020. In addition, we are working more closely with our sister agencies and utility partners to improve the response to gas and electrical outages. For gas outages, that means working with DOB, the Department of Buildings, and National Grid and Con Edison to complete the inspections, permitting process, and service restoration as quickly as possible. And in the event of a gas outage, NYCHA will connect residents to New York City Human Resources Administration, which can provide a restaurant allowance for meal purchases, and to not-for-profit organizations that deliver meals. Our heating operation is vast. At our nearly 2,200 buildings across the city, we have nearly 1,400 boilers, and about 1,800 pieces of distribution equipment, and around 1,700 water heaters. Our 624 full-time heating staff include heating plant technicians, maintenance workers, plumbers, oil burner specialists, electricians, electrician helpers, and their supervisors. They maintain systems that span boiler plants, heating distribution pipes, and apartment radiators. NYCHA's building and infrastructure are old, so it's an unfortunate reality that there will be breakdowns in our heating equipment and systems. But in focusing on preventive maintenance and repairs and implementing operational improvements, we've been able to reduce the number of outages. The number of total heat outages decreased from 1,224 in 2018-2019 to 819 in 2019-2020 to 584 last heat season, a 52% reduction. We introduced planned outages scheduled for warmer days in 2018-2019 heat season so that we can do necessary repairs to improve the heating system's performance and prevent unplanned outages when the weather is colder. In the last heat season, there were 120 planned heat outages restored within an average of 7 hours. Every year, we strive to improve and to minimize outages, planned or unplanned, and any impacts to our residents' quality of life. By focusing intensely on our response, we've also been able to reduce the length of outages considerably. From 2018-2019 heat season to last year's heat season, we brought down the average time to restore total outages by nearly 20%. Again, from 8.8 hours to 7.3 hours, below the 12-hour restoration target. We want to keep bringing these numbers down even more. To improve heat services for residents, we have implemented a 24/7 staffing model for repair teams, established a 24/7 heat desk that monitors potential service disruptions from various data and dispatches staff accordingly, hired 70 additional heating plant technicians. We brought on 56 plumbers and 12 electricians dedicated to resolving heating issues as part of our enhanced staffing model. We've established a situation room to coordinate and focus our resources on expediting service restoration when necessary. We set up daily calls to strategize on service issues. We've created a schedule of annual preventive maintenance, inspections, and heating equipment, so any unnecessary or necessary repairs can be made. We've procured third-party management of heating plants at over 40 developments and are utilizing contractors for specialized repairs across our portfolio. We have in place 67 mobile boilers placed as needed and also staged in geographic areas. We've developed a process to open warming centers for residents when necessary. In addition, we are investing $28 million in city operating funding to replace approximately 400 heating equipment components, such as hot water boiler replacements, heat control panels, and tanks. We are also working to improve the tracking of outages and assets and examining with the monitors team the root cause of outages to prevent future occurrences. As part of our transformation efforts, we enhanced our communication with residents. That means we are now ensuring that residents are notified of outages or in advance of scheduled repairs through building flyers and robocalls, enabling residents to automatically let us know if they're still experiencing a service disruption when they receive robocalls, alerting them of service restoration. This data helps us better address lingering issues. We also post information about outages on our website, as well as apartment temperatures for the developments where we're installing indoor temperature sensors. Our website provides more transparency than ever before, enhancements guided by our discussions with advocates and residents. We're also posting information about outages on social media. We have improved the process for collecting resident data on outages in other ways, such as by updating the questions residents are asked when submitting heat complaints through the Customer Contact Center or My NYCHA app. This facilitates issues diagnosis, and repair staff deployment. In addition, we rolled out an upgraded My NYCHA app that will allow residents to receive notifications about outages on their smartphones. We do request that residents report issues through either CCC or My NYCHA system, as this enables us to most effectively respond to issues. My NYCHA is available in Spanish, and our CCC representatives can connect callers to an interpreter who speaks their language. Since it was launched in 2016, nearly 112,000 residents have used My NYCHA app to create over 2 million work orders. Excuse me. To improve heat services for our residents for the long term, we must replace aging, faulty infrastructure while we make operational improvements. Over the next several years, we are replacing 359 boilers across 80 developments, with approximately $2 billion in city, state, and federal funding. Since 2019, we have installed 47 boilers as part of this pipeline. Keep in mind that outages are not always due to boiler failures. They are often due to issues with other parts of NYCHA's aging infrastructure, such as the distribution system and other heating components. An example of this is the recent issue at Woodside Houses, which needs its entire advanced management system replaced, including the burner, the combustion control, computer module, feed water, sump pump, and gas valves. This is why we are taking a comprehensive approach to improving heat service, planning investments in heating systems as a whole, underground distribution systems, pipes and walls, heating components, and boilers. And we're not just replacing in kind, but are putting in place more effective systems. For example, to improve hot water services, we're incorporating modern designs in our new heating plants, decoupling hot water equipment from heating equipment so that issues with one don't affect the other. We are also, where possible, electrifying gas stoves, moving away from steam distribution, and improving the building envelope, all things that help reduce outages and keep residents safe and comfortable. HUD's Energy Performance Contracting, or EPC, enabled us to replace boilers and modernize heating systems with the assistance from energy service companies without spending capital dollars upfront. The improvements are funded by the cost savings from reduced energy consumption. Last year, we finished investing over $300 million at 70 developments through 4 EPCs, several years ahead of schedule and beyond our initial investment goal. By installing a building management system and apartment temperature sensors at 47 developments, we can now monitor building temperatures and heating and hot water systems in real time. The system improves the distribution of heat throughout the buildings, reduces overheating and underheating, and makes the heating system greener and more energy efficient. These new controls generally provide temperatures of 72 to 74 degrees above New York City's requirement of 68, though lower than some residents may be accustomed to. NYCHA is also taking advantage of direct install programs with local utilities. Through these programs, local vendors are compensated by the utilities to repair and replace apartment radiator valves and traps at no cost to NYCHA. This work improves steam distribution and residents' comfort. Through the state's Weatherization Assistance Program, we plan to bring $30 million in energy and water efficiency upgrades, including new boilers, to up to 8,000 apartments and 65 developments. To date, nearly $15 million of the work is underway or complete at 32 developments. In 2019, NYCHA released a design-build RFP with the goal of transitioning the heating and domestic hot water producing systems at 8 developments to high-efficiency, clean electric heat pumps. These and other technologies lead towards the decarbonization of our buildings per Local Law 97, greenhouse gas reduction goals, while also enhancing the system's performance and resident comfort. In 2020, we released an RFP seeking a team to retrofit a select building to achieve near net zero energy performance by 2021. Together with our other energy efficiency work, this trailblazing first of its kind demonstration project will help with the city meet its ambitious climate goals while improving residents' quality of life. As part of this work, we recently released a 5-year update to our sustainability agenda, which developed a roadmap for cutting-edge technologies such as electric heat pumps and geothermal and hydronic conversions. As NYCHA advocates for new funding to recapitalize our assets. Other ways we will improve service to residents include issuing more user-friendly handhelds for staff, developing a plan to assist vulnerable residents in the event of a heat outage, and creating a work order quality assurance program, while we evaluate each heating season, as well as our resident communication systems. We will also continue to install apartment temperature sensors at a total of 60 developments, technology that enables us to better deploy staff and analyze data. Providing reliable and comfortable heat is one of our top priorities as we work to improve our delivery of service to residents. We are committed to continued progress in this area by making substantial improvements to our operations, as well as strategic investments from new heating plants and systems to improve staffing models. Our residents' quality of life drives everything we do, especially when it comes to delivering basic services such as heat and hot water. While we have reduced the time it takes to restore heat outages and the number of outages significantly, there's more work to be done. Thank you very much for your partnership. With your support and the support of other members of the community, we will keep making a difference for our residents. We look forward to our continued collaboration on NYCHA's transformation, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Vito. Thank you so much. We have also been joined by Majority Leader Lori Cumbo. So just getting started, jumping right into it. Can you please
Sorry, Chair. Sorry to interrupt. Just really quickly before they begin, I'd like to administer the oath to Javier Amoldovar so that he can be ready to answer questions on the record. Thanks.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Audrey. Please define an outage for us.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Outages are defined as two different types. We have a planned outage, and we also have unplanned outages. Planned outages are correct the condition identified and cause a service disruption if left unattended. It's a corrective maintenance protocol that we follow. So when we visit some of these sites during our routine inspections of the boiler rooms and ancillary equipment rooms, if we see something that may require attention, we schedule an unplanned outage to address it. I'm sorry, a planned outage to address it. Controlled service disruption, we take the system down. We have all the staff and all the material in place to correct that condition. So in essence, it's a corrective maintenance. The second reason why we would create a planned outage is for ongoing capital improvement work. We want to meet the schedule of the construction work so that we complete the work on time. And so we work with capital projects and the contractors to create planned controlled service disruptions so that they can perform their work and stay on schedule. So that's a planned outage. Now, an unplanned outage is the exact opposite. They're created for unforeseen events. If something happens where the system goes down unexpectedly, then we create an unplanned outage. In both cases, create outages for either a development, building, a stair hall, or apartment line. And again, in both cases, residents in the affected area receive a robocall. The difference between the two is that with a planned outage, the robocall goes out 48 hours in advance of the scheduled work and the scheduled takedown of the system. And unplanned, the robocall goes out within the hour of the creation of that planned outage.
Thank you. How many heat and hot water outages have occurred so far this heating season? I think we're 12 days into it.
Yeah, we haven't had the need to provide heat because the temperatures have been above 55 since the start of October. And so because of that, we've had no heating outages at all. All of our outages, total of 81, have been for no hot water.
Okay, so for all of the outages that were no hot water, which ones were planned and how many were planned and how many were unplanned?
26 were planned and 55 were unplanned.
And if I can give an update, as of this morning, we currently have 2 unplanned hot water outages and 6 planned.
And for the ones that were, so for either one, which developments had the most outages so far?
So far today, that
And
That
in
information-
that same vein, when you say which developments, can you let us know what's unique about that particular development or those particular developments, just to give us a sense of what's going on?
So unfortunately, I don't have the exact development that has had the most outages so far for this heating season, but I do have it for the last heating season.
Okay, well, you can talk about the last heating season. That's fine. And I think the developments are listed. So is there a way to take a quick look to see those developments and maybe compare them to the last heating season? Just as we're talking now.
Are we comparing the outages that are on
The developments themselves. Because you were just saying you don't have the names of the developments for right now, but you can let us know about the last season. And so I'm saying, okay, we can talk about the last season just to see if there's any
So I
consistency.
just want to make sure I understand your question, and forgive me about it. So I'm looking at the website right now, and it's listing the developments that have a service disruption. So you're asking me to compare, for example, Castle Hill, which is the one that's on there now, and it's a planned outage, right? And it's for the installation of a vacuum tank, which is an ancillary piece of equipment. You want to know how this development favored last year?
Exactly. To see if there were any lessons learned and if that was part of like planned before.
Yeah. It'll have to be from memory because I don't have the exact information from last year in front of me. Right? But I can tell you that at Castle Hill, it's an advanced boiler management system. Had some issues with the advanced boiler management system that was related to some of our ancillary equipment, which is why today we're in Building 11 replacing a piece of that ancillary equipment so that we can get the condensate back to the boiler. The next one on the list is Dyckman. Dyckman didn't favor too badly last year, but at Dyckman, the reason why the outage is going on today.
Wait, just say it one more time because I'm having a little trouble hearing you. You just finished talking about Castle Hill, so now you just said something. You're talking about Dyckman now, right?
Dyckman.
Councilwoman, yeah, Javier is going down the list of our current open hot water outages.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the current hot water outages, when you mentioned Dyckman, they're on the current list now. But you mentioned something about last year, and so I wanted to get that and just
I'm sorry. Okay,
make it clear because there's a point there.
Last year, Dyckman didn't do too badly. It wasn't on our radar. In other words, it fared fairly well. Now, as far as the work that's going on at Dyckman today, this work is actually related to a laundry room that's being installed. It really has nothing to do with our equipment. We took the equipment down so that the construction of that laundry room can continue. We have steam fitters on site right now that are making some connections to that laundry room, and that's why we took the system down.
Okay, now go back to Castle Hill.
Castle Hill.
Mm-hmm. So go back to Castle Hill. What is happening now, and then compare it to just from your memory, like you were saying, just kind of going off of memory, what was happening.
So at Castle Hill, what's going on now, we're replacing a piece of ancillary equipment in one of the tanks. It's a vacuum tank. It helps with heat distribution and condensate return to the boiler. Castle Hill has an advanced boiler management system in the boiler room that controls the entire plant, that records condensate coming back and steam output. And so by replacing this piece of equipment, we're hoping to improve the condensate return from the system back to the boiler and prevent any service disruptions that may be related to the lack of condensate return from the system, the boiler.
Okay. And how many, just looking at your current list right now in front of you, we're not talking about heat because of the temperature. Right now it's warm outside. We're talking about hot water. So how many individual residents have been impacted due to the lack of hot water?
So for in total for planned is 1,594, and unplanned is 2,454, which would be roughly 4,080 residents, about roughly.
Okay, and I know that there's a difference between planned and unplanned. So what's the average time to restore hot water?
Currently, right now, we're at 9 hours right now.
Okay. And it's going back to heat. What is the average time to restore heat? Just going back to what the actual requirements are.
That's a very good question. So the requirement is 12 hours, and for the past 3 heating seasons, we met that requirement and actually showed a reduction in the number of hours to restore. Last heating season, we ended at 7.3 hours, 7.3. The heating season before that, we were at 7.7. We're talking about heat, right? And the heating season before that, we were at 8.7, almost 9.
Okay, now can you go back? So, and I do want to say, Vito, just in your opening testimony, I was pretty impressed, a little shocked at those numbers. I think you quoted some 92%. And I thought that was pretty, it's pretty good.
Thank you.
Right?
We're doing better. We're doing much better.
Okay. You know, but I do have to say there were no residents to testify this morning. And so we're used to hearing a different story. So we're going to go with it right now.
Well, we're not perfect, Councilwoman, but we are doing better.
I know. But just going back to wait a minute now. Your communication to the residents and what your numbers tell you. How reliable is the actual system itself, the data that you have on Maximo? Like how reliable is that system right now? And can you just talk a little bit about the system?
You want to talk about the system Maximo?
The how reliable is NYCHA's data on Maximo?
I would say it's pretty reliable. I mean, Maximo tracks all of our work orders, and while we create them, the system automatically closes them out in the system. So it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, and if I could also add, Councilwoman, you know, the interactive IVR system that we put in place when we restore heat or hot water, excuse me, when the outage is declared restored, right? We do send a robocall out to the residents, and it does encourage them to respond, to tell us, yes, it's been corrected, or no, it has not been. I don't have the statistics on the IVR calls from last year. We can certainly get them to you, but it was fantastic. It was great because it helped us identify where there were still issues that our residents were experiencing in their apartments, even though our technicians, our staff, made the repairs in the boiler room. Right? So that has been a tremendous tool. I think the other value point that I want to make too is, especially for this year, Javier and his team started doing the overhauls, the inspections as early as February to ensure that we go into this heat season in much better shape. We also weekly, and in fact, and sometimes even more often, have conversations with the federal monitors team. Right? And what they've been doing is sending staff out as well to evaluate our heating plants. And they've been sending us reports that are invaluable. It's a third set of eyes that are being put on the heating plants. We had a great conversation with the federal monitor and HUD last week about the use of these reports. I want to thank Dan Burnell from the federal monitors team and his staff who are really on top of these issues. And in fact, what was also unique about this year is HUD kind of gave us a challenge and just gave us a scenario and asked us to play out the scenario. And I think we did extremely well. Again, always room for improvement, but I think that with the collaboration with the federal monitor, with HUD, and with all of our external partners, it's keeping us on our toes. And Javier is constantly improving on the process. Our staffing levels are better than we've ever seen before. This year, we transferred electricians and electrician helpers over to Javier. So he has direct control over now plumbers and electricians, all to support his operation. So we've made a lot of fundamental changes. In communication, there's always room for improvement. I think we're doing much better, but certainly more work to be done.
Okay, I appreciate that, because that was, just looking at the, right now we're at the beginning of the heating season, so we don't have a lot of, like current information to go off of. And just looking at the numbers from last year and listening to your testimony, that's what made me ask that question, how reliable is the data? Because, that's all we have to go with right now. And so.
And Councilmember, can I just add to on what Vito said too? So the IVR system that was set up with the robocalls that are interactive, that's something that the council and especially this committee really encouraged in response to the batch closings. Before, the criticism was that residents would call in an issue, an outage would be declared, the heating system would come back, and then the work orders were closed. Javier and his team and with the leadership of Vito have now made it, we don't close them until we're hearing from residents that they're actually receiving heat. So it's much better, it's much more accurate, and we're hearing less reoccurring problems as a result.
That is huge. That is definitely huge. And I want to just touch on something quickly before we move on into the federal monitor questions. Questions related to the agreement. Vito, you mentioned the energy performance contract program. And in your testimony, you said this system.
Is Steve Lovestein? I'm sorry.
You talked about a development that was able to be modernized, and I just wanted to ask questions about, here it is. The system improves the distribution of heat throughout buildings, reducing overheating and underheating. It makes the heating system greener and more efficient. These new controls generally provide temperatures of 72 to 74 degrees, above New York City's requirement of 68 degrees, though lower than some residents may be accustomed to. And so I just wanted to touch on that. How is that going, and can you speak to that? Because I do know the required temperature is, clearly much lower than some residents are accustomed to. We're used to having 75 degrees, especially in our senior buildings. So can you speak to the opportunity to have a warmer temperature in some of these buildings?
Sure, I'm going to start, and then I'm going to ask Javier to kind of jump in as well. So the system that we're talking about there really, it monitors the internal temperatures. and we're following that very closely. The system is, as I mentioned in my testimony, designed to maintain and regulate the heat between 72, 74. Without these controls and without these sensors, we've historically overheated our buildings, providing temperatures sometimes in the upper 70s. And I've been out to a number of our buildings and took temperature readings, sometimes up to 78, even 82 degrees. That was my comment about perhaps some residents are accustomed to seeing higher temperatures. I also want to thank the City Council, because when I was at HPD, something that we had worked hard on was to increase the nighttime temperature. And I'm grateful to the council for doing that. So the nighttime temperature now is 62 degrees. Before that, it was much lower. It was only 55. So there have been significant improvements, and that's for all property owners. But we're able to better control the temperatures with these sensors. And again, it makes for a much more energy efficient heating system. It does get some getting used to for our residents, because they may see fluctuations. It may drop down to 70, 72 degrees before the heat turns back on and brings it back up to 74. So you might see some fluctuations as opposed to a constant temperature. But Javier, do you want to add to what we've experienced with these systems?
And Javier, before you start, I just wanted to also put into context too that a lot of the calls that we get, it's either it's just way too cold, right, or way too hot. And then when someone goes out with their, their instrument, their tool, they will say that it's appropriate temperature, or it's like maybe a different timing. So I just wanted to put that out there. Okay, Javier.
So first let me just touch a little bit more about how the system actually works. Yes, it's regulating the indoor temperature. The way it does that is that this is the part that the residents are not too accustomed to as well. It shuts the system down when the temperatures reach the set point of 74, on 74. You guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just lost Cal Bruno is the only person I see now. At any rate, so the system shuts down, and when it shuts down, once it's satisfied, you don't feel the heat in the pipes, and that's the part that the residents are most not accustomed to. And so what we find is that when the system does shut down, getting more calls, and when we go into the apartment, while the system may not be activated at that time, the temperatures in the apartment are actually within the range. That's why you're hearing from many residents that it's either too cold or it's too hot, and the temperature's still not where I want it to be. The system is designed to shut down at that high point, which is 74, 75, and then it kicks back in at around 70, and it regulates between those two temperatures.
Got it.
But again, what we've been finding is that when the system is on the closed end of it, there's no heat going through the pipe. That's where we see an increase in work orders.
I see Vito has his hand raised.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I also want to add too that when we install these systems, we do have a program that where we try to inform our residents about these new systems. It's an educational program. So we are communicating with our residents. It's different for a lot of our residents. So it does take some getting accustomed to, but we do have outreach staff that go and meet with the residents. They talk about these new systems, and we do that in advance of the systems coming online.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks. I just wanted to touch on that before I forget to ask a question about temperatures. So jumping directly into the next conversation, the federal monitor is tasked to assist NYCHA to seek regulatory relief from HUD, the City of New York, and the State of New York. Has NYCHA identified or flagged regulations they need relief from? And if so, what are they? And how do these regulations impede NYCHA, just the work that you're doing? So can you just speak a little bit about, you mentioned already that you've had conversations with the federal monitor. Can you just talk about some of the flagged regulations and relief?
So Javier and his team and Vito and his team meet with the monitor weekly. We can't speak, for them, and I wouldn't even try to pretend to, but I can tell you what we've done so far. Early on, after
So remember, I'm not asking about the federal monitor. I'm just asking what have you asked?
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to start off there. I would never want to speak for that to you. And so right away with design build, it was something that we saw was a big pain point, right? And oftentimes when and we went, we helped, in Albany to fight for that, to make sure that NYCHA was included when other agencies were getting this benefit. And all of the state-funded heating projects and the city-funded heating projects are using this method. On top of that, we also went to HUD to seek for a waiver to make sure that we could use the benefit that the state gave us, because HUD has some rules against design build, and we were able to do that successfully. So right there, we're cutting down on the time for new boiler plants in the construction of them. So that is a major hurdle right there. The other pain point that we see right now, and it's something that's included in the trust legislation, but we can do it separately as well, is around procurement. Right now, NYCHA has to go with the lowest responsive bidder when we bid out a project. And oftentimes when you get the lowest responsive, you get a contractor who comes in low. Later on, there has to be change orders. This causes delay in the project. It also doesn't give you the best contractors that are available out there. We would like to go to a system that allows us to go with best value. That gives you better quality contractors who will have more realistic bids. So we can cut down on those change orders. We'll have better projects that will come in on time as well. So right there, those would be two huge things that the state can do in order to help us, especially with newer plans.
Okay, so under the actual agreement, it states that NYCHA has to replace or address approximately 500 boilers by 2026. So that's in the written language. How are you on dealing with this particular target? And is it something that's realistic by 2026?
I would leave that to both Javier and Vito on the timelines of the agreement.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was looking for some numbers, but I mean, right now we are on target to achieve those goals. If I can get some numbers, I'll share some numbers with you. But as of right now, we're on target.
Oh, and I'm just, I can't wait for you to answer just like the timelines and targets of the agreement, only because, you know, everyone else is talking about COVID having been an issue, and, you know, some projects are not on track and everything else. So I don't want you to say that you're on target and, you know.
No, I appreciate that.
You've
Thank
done
you.
one out of the 500.
Yeah, and COVID certainly did impact all of us, and our heating department as well as capital. And in fact, it continues to impact us in ways that we didn't even anticipate. Trying to find materials and parts for heating plants is becoming a challenge. But
Okay,
we're
and I'm
doing-
asking that question too, again, when I said, is it a realistic target? Because my next question is, does funds have anything to do with you being able to meet that target? And what does the agreement speak to, you know, those issues? Like what would happen if you can't, because it's just going to cost too much money now, and you don't see where it's coming from, you know, just being able to flush through those issues. And I just want my colleagues to know that I'm going to continue to move forward with the questions because I don't see any hands raised. So just wanted to put that out there for my colleagues.
Okay, so if Councilwoman, if you want to go on to the next question, we're getting the information on that question.
So starting on, so it stated that October 1st, 2020, during the heat season, NYCHA would restore heat to effective units within 24 hours, and in no event more than 48 hours when there is a short, I don't even understand. Has NYCHA been able to meet all of its goals during the last heating season of making sure that none of the outages went beyond 48 hours? And if not, even if it's one development, can you just speak to the why? Why were you not able to stick within the 48 hours? And now that we have a new heating season, is there any, you know, clearly there's a plan, but what is it?
So we have been meeting the 12-hour obligation. You can hear me, right? Just want to make sure.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
And we this last heating season, as I said, we ended the heating season with a average response time of 7.3 hours for heat. And I think Vito had testified earlier that we were at 92% of the total heat outages were addressed within 12 hours. And fewer than 1% of the outages lasted longer than 24, but we had none that went over 48 at all. I don't have the exact details on the ones, and forgive me for this, I'll get back to you, of course. The one that went over 24 hours, I don't want to misspeak, so I'd like to give you the exact details on what happened with that one that went over 24 hours last year. But this year, you know, we continue to aim to improve year after year. That's always our goal. And we've been doing that for the past 3 years, and I'm hoping that this year is no different.
Okay. And so again, it's just to figure out if maybe that one there's a pattern and what's happening. And if that one it will not be the one this year, but there might be a similar development with those same issues, and then that will be the one because the focus was on that other one. And so again, just trying to, get a clear understanding as to what's happening, because there is still this need to replace and address approximately 500 boilers by 2026. And so just ensuring that you can continue to be on track for providing heat and hot water to all of your customers, to all of your residents, just would be helpful. So as you're still trying to figure that out, I am going to, unless you have something to say right now.
No, I'm good.
Okay, so I'm gonna press pause because I do see a hand up for one of my colleagues. So Audrey.
Sure. We'll now turn to Councilmember Riley for some questions. Just in the interest of time, please be sure to keep your questions to 5 minutes. Sergeant at Arms will keep a timer and let you know when your time is up.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council. I think I'll be way shorter than 5 minutes. But I think, thank you, Chair, for the question. It was very straight to the point. I think my concern this winter is projected to be one of the most coldest winters, according to the World Almanac records. And being that a lot of places, like I represent Edenwald, which is a huge complex in my district, and every winter is always a shortage or in a building, or the heat goes out in the building. So just knowing that this winter will be one of the coldest winters, can you just walk me? I'm sorry if you did this already, because I was doing something in the background, but can you just walk me through the procedures if a building has to go without power or without heat? How do you get the power and the heat? How fast does NYCHA contact the residents? And how fast will the heat be put back up when it goes out?
Okay, so what we do is through routine site visits, if we notice that a system went down unexpectedly, we immediately create an unplanned outage work order. And within the hour of the creation of that outage work order in Maximo, a robocall is sent out to the affected population, right? So if it's a single building, then everyone in that building will get the robocall to inform the residents that there's an issue related to your heat and that we're on it and we're working on it. Now, it's difficult to say what will break down, because some of our systems are old, but through our protocols that we have in place, like the routine site visits that we do daily, if we see something wrong, as I just said, we make an outage work order for that. And in addition to that, we have a 24-hour heat desk that monitors 2 key performance indicators for us. The first one is work orders, and the other one is CHAS alarms, right? CHAS alarms are our computerized heating automated system. It sends trouble alarms via email to the entire heating staff when there's an issue in a boiler plant. If there's an issue in the boiler plant, as you would imagine, if the plant goes down, then the entire system goes down. And so what my heat desk does is they monitor those 2 key performance indicators 24 hours a day. And the work orders, when we see a spike in work orders, whether it's in a single building, a stair hall, or an entire development, then we dispatch staff to that site if we don't have staff on site. As you can imagine, we do have staff that work different shifts, and the heat desk works, because they work 24 hours, they can dispatch staff accordingly when staff has already gone home. So we do have roving teams that work at night, and we do have specific sites that have an AM and PM watch as well. And so if Edenwald is one of those sites, then we will communicate with that staff first to make sure that they go and inspect whatever the issue is, so that we're responding as quickly as we possibly can. And the goal is to identify what the issue is and assign the appropriate staff to restore that service as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Councilmember, I hope that you're wrong. Or the almanac is wrong.
I
But
hope
we
so.
we are positioned, and as Javier said, we have a really good playbook here. And we also are increasing the number of mobile heating plants,
Okay.
both that we own as well as that we're renting. In fact, we're bringing 6 more on that we currently didn't have, just in preparation for what may be the inevitable. But that's a last resort. Javier and his team have done a great job in getting services restored without us having to install a mobile unit. But we do have those available should we need to. Chair, can I go back to your question about the replacement per the HUD agreement, the action plan?
Only if Riley is finished.
Yes.
Sure, my apologies.
No, it's all right. I'm finished. Thank you, Vito. Thank you, Javier. I see Brian Honan on the call. I work very well with Brian for years. So Brian's usually on top of a lot of the issues I have in my district. So thank you very much, Chair.
You're welcome. But Vito, before you go back to that, I just need to.
Absolutely.
Can you just clarify again, the parent work order and the child?
Sure. Go ahead, Javier.
And to that, at what point does it actually close? Just to clarify that real quick.
So with the outage work order, it gets closed after we've confirmed, not only after we've completed the work and put the system back online, but after we've confirmed that the services that we provide our residents are being supplied. So we'll visit a number of apartments to confirm, of course, before we close that outage out.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, Vito.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. So I want to go back to your question about the about where we are with respect to the target in the agreement. As of today, we are on target to achieve the replacement of the 297 boilers by the end of 2026. And in fact, right now we have 311 replacements that are in various stages of progress, and we've already replaced 64.
The 311 is out of the 500?
So no, the actually the capital is required to replace 297 boilers.
Okay.
That's what we reported to HUD. We can go over the numbers, later if you like. But so we are on target. We do have the funds in place to achieve that, using a combination of city, state, and federal dollars. Right, and that's as of today. We don't anticipate any problems. We've been seeing a lot of forward progress. So I'm just looking here. So the agreement requires capital assist to replace 297 boilers by December 31st, 2026. Again, we have 311 that are actively in progress. 64 have already been replaced. That's against the 297. And then through
because
sure.
311 is more than 297. 297.
So no, so right. So again, I guess in anticipation, our goal is to do better. We're required to do 297.
Okay.
Right now we have 311. Right.
Okay.
Right. Yes. I'm sorry. So we do have a little wiggle room there, and God forbid if one or two fall out. But we do intend on going through with the 311. And again, the funds are in place for that. So as of today, we are in good shape with respect to our obligations pursuant to the agreement.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So now I want to ask questions about the city and its obligations and promises that were made. On January 31st, 2018, Mayor de Blasio released a press release that stated that the city plans to invest $200 million to replace boilers and upgrade heating systems at 29 developments. This funding was supposed to go towards replacing outdated boilers, modernizing heating system controls, and hot water making technology. And these renovations would be finished by 2022. So I know you just mentioned the work that you're doing and utilizing funding from the city, state, and the feds, but it's just specifically speaking to the 200 million. Did NYCHA begin replacing the boilers at Morris 1, Morris 2, Taft, Cypress Hill, Farragut, Sotomayor, Rangel, Fiorentino, Long Island Baptist, and Robinson. And are we on track to finish these reservations by 2022, which is next year?
Right. Bear with me for a moment. Does somebody have the page with the phase 1 and phase 2? I'm sorry, just bear with me for 1 minute. Javier, if you can locate that before I do, can you?
Okay, and while you're looking at that, I just wanted to say this real quick, 'cause I get all kinds
I'm
of
on mute. I'm so
messages.
sorry. I'm on mute. I'm sorry.
While Vito's looking that up, you already know that I do a lot of get DMs and stuff, direct messages on social media. So according to residents, sometimes the workers will measure the heat in a bathroom or a kitchen, but not in actual livable space. It's not realistic for a resident to be relegated to one part of their apartment. So when you're talking about closing out a ticket or a work order, can you speak to that specific issue where a worker will go in and they will close out because there's adequate heat in a bathroom or a kitchen?
So we should not be taking temperature readings in kitchens or bathrooms.
Oh, okay.
So we will reiterate that, reinforce that with our staff,
Okay,
but we should not be taking the temperature readings in those rooms.
okay.
Okay, great. Chair, with respect to your question about the city capital dollars. So since the mayor's January 31st, 2018 press release, we have begun replacing the boilers at, as you said, Morris 1, Morris 2, Taft, Cypress Hills, Farragut, Sotomayor, Rangel, Fiorentino, Long Island Baptist, and Robinson. We are on track to complete these by 2022. What has been completed to date: Long Island Baptist, Fiorentino, Robinson, Sotomayor. Taft and Farragut are scheduled to be complete in 2022. And Morris 1, 2, and Marcinia and Rangel sometime late in 2023. So we're on track right now with respect to the city capital commitment. And we could send you this information after the hearing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, inspections. During the February 6, 2018 hearing, NYCHA stated that your organization was working on ways to ensure that service tickets will no longer be. Oh, okay. Now I'm talking about your communication to the residents. How many NYCHA units are registered with the My NYCHA app?
Sure. Well, I don't have the unit count. I do know that we have right now about 112,000 users. Right. And to date, since the implementation of the app, they have collectively put in about 2 million more tickets.
Oh, 112,000 users on the My NYCHA app. So those are all the residents.
Those are all residents.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm going to stop there. We have been joined by Councilmember Salamanca. And I do see that our Majority Leader Cumbo has her hand raised. So I'm going to stop there. Audrey?
Sure. Thanks so much for joining us, Majority Leader. We'll now turn to questions from you. In the interest of time, please keep your questions to 5 minutes. Following the Majority Leader, we will move to questions from Councilmember Salamanca.
Your time will begin. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Chair Ampry Samuel, for conducting this very important hearing today. I heard earlier in the testimony, the question that was regarding the lowest bidding and discussions around how we always have to pick the lowest bidder, which often doesn't mean that we're getting the greatest quality or the greatest service, and the issue around change orders. My question is on this level and many others. I've seen during my time in office, from the Obama administration to the Trump administration, and now we're into the Biden administration, as well as we've had issues now, or victories rather, where the Democrats are in the majority on the federal and state level. What can be done at this critical point right now on branches of government to change those types of policies and practices so that we're not just consistently giving way to the lowest bidders who unfortunately often don't look like our community, don't have, we're pushing for this MWBE dynamic, but if the lowest bidder is who's always going to win, that's not going to allow many of our MWBEs to win. So my question is for that one, is there any legislation in place? Is there any kind of movement? Because I feel like sometimes we get caught in the, well, this is the way it's always been this way, so it's always going to be this way. Or when these changes in parties happen, do we rush to the boards to try and get some of these things to happen? And can you speak about other federal and state legislation that's on the boards right now that's looking to change some of the policies that have always kept us in this rat wheel of trying to change things?
Thank you so much, Majority Leader. And this is something that I think we've talked about plenty of times throughout the years, that even when NYCHA gets money, oftentimes residents say the quality contractors is not, someone that people feel good about, and the work, even when it gets done, oftentimes leaves people thinking it probably could have been done better. The way to do it better is by changing this procurement system. And yes, we do have legislation in Albany that would allow us to go with, rather than lowest responsive bidder, go with best value. That means the company that comes with the best possible offer that could get the work done in a reasonable amount of time, we would be allowed to make the argument that that's the contractor we should go to. In addition, in that legislation, we also have MWBE goals, because there is no reason why you can't get the best contractors and also make sure that you are also getting contractors from within the community with strong MWBE goals. Those things are not opposite. They should be both, the goal of, any agency, especially NYCHA. So Senate Bill 6999, I talk about this so much that I know it off the top of my head, has those provisions in it. And, it's something that we're pushing as well. We've also talked to the sponsors about, because that's a massive 40-page bill, talking about just taking those things out of that bill and making it separate just on, procurement as well. We're happy either way, but we need to, kind of get our arms, that are tied behind our backs right now, untying untying them and letting us get the best contractors. In addition, on the federal level, we've been talking.
Mr. Honan, let me just stop you right there. That sounds great, but why isn't that bill able to pass tomorrow? Like, what's holding up something as common sense as something like this? I don't want to say name names, but who's holding this up so we can get it through? I'm sorry, Chair Ampry Samuel.
I just want you to jump. I want to jump in there real quick. Can you say what the name of the bill is and who the sponsors are? So
sure. It is the Public Housing Trust Bill. And the sponsor in the Senate is Senator Kavanaugh. The sponsor in the Assembly is Assembly Member Simbowitz. It is, as I said, it is part of a very large piece of legislation that basically changes the way we look and how public housing is funded, in New York City. So also too, I know that Albany has been very slow over the years to change procurement rules. It took probably a decade to get design build. It's something that doesn't happen easy, but it's something that we're going to continue to bring up. We have a new administration in place. We've been having conversations with them. We've been telling them that this is, really something without short of giving us money. This is something that, Albany can do to really, really help us get quality work.
Let me just say this, Brian, and please remember your thought. This is the type of bill and discussion that needs to be, that our constituents, our residents in public housing need to be aware of so that they can push this forward. We have a very interesting, 8 months coming up, and there are going to be a lot of people meeting with those constituents. We need for them to be articulate in what they're advocating for and what they're asking for, and they need to be educated about this so that they're asking the right questions and pushing the right agenda. For something as important as this, we need to be more connected with our brothers and sisters in Albany in pushing this forward and getting this information out to the residents. So please continue.
Sure. And I agree with you totally. And any
Time
work
has expired.
that we can do together on this, we'd be happy to do that. And just one last thing to that, I want to say is your former colleague, Congressman Torres, too, on the federal level, has been working with us to see if we can get a bill nationally to make sure that not only is this something that we can do for NYCHA, but we can do for public housing authorities throughout the country as well.
Can you talk to us a little bit? I'm sorry. Can you talk to us just to briefly summarize what, I love to say that, Congressmember Richie Torres, what his bill is specifically calling for?
Yes, I think his bill calls for a more streamlined approach for procurement, and also for allowing public housing authorities to get the best contractors, that are possible, not just going with the lowest responsive bidder. Again, when you get the lowest, you often get what you pay for, and you often get change orders that cause frustration to everyone. It causes frustration, especially to the residents, but it causes frustration to the authority as well. And it's something that nobody likes to see, and I think it erodes trust.
Got it. Thank you so much. Thank you for the extra time, Chair Ampry Samuel.
And I just wanted to add that a lot of times we see this on a state level and on a federal level, where we have a bill where certain components of the bill makes a lot of sense. But in order for everyone to be satisfied, it'll include things that not everybody is on board with. And so this particular public trust bill is something that they've had a public hearing on. I want to say it was last year, December. It could have been now.
Yep, it was last December. Yes.
Last year, December, and on a state level. And a lot of the state legislators spoke on their opinion about the bill, and other even city representatives. And the residents are very keyed in to what the language of the bill states, because there's been a public trust conversation tour to all the NYCHA developments. And the resident leaders have been very open and vocal about their opinion. And again, there are some components to the bill that's dynamic, and there's things that we actually advocated for. But again, we have to continue having conversations with the future of public housing, and what is going to happen with the future of public housing, and the opportunities for residents to, be owners and have more of a stake and an opinion and input and feedback. And so it's a very interesting bill and complicated at the same time. That's it for me. I mean, I have more questions, but I know that Councilmember Salamanca hand is raised.
Councilmember Salamanca. And also, excuse me, also just a reminder to other members who are present, if you have questions, to also use the Zoom raise hand function, and we'll call on you. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. First, I want to thank you, Madam Chair, on this such an important hearing, especially on utilities and preparing for the winter. The chairwoman Councilmember Ayala and myself, we have the third largest nitro portfolio in the city of New York. And when I go around and I speak to my constituents at Jackson houses, at Melrose houses, at Stebbins Hewitt Consolidated, it's always the same issue when winter's coming. Am I going to have hot water? Is my boiler going to be working? Am I going to have heat? Or am I going to be sleeping with a coat this winter? So my question to you, you guys at NYCHA, I'm going to make about 6 years now in March as a council member. And for up to 6 years, every year, my NYCHA developments at the same locations are having the same issues. What's going to be so different this winter?
Sure, Councilmember, it's Vito. I'll start, and then I'll see if Javier wants to add anything. Again, I think, as I testified and as we tried to respond to questions, I think we're much better prepared this year than we have been in previous years. A lot of effort went into preparing for this heat season. We've made a number of significant investments. I would love to spend some time with you and just talk about your developments, and we can go over.
So I have 3 minutes. We can do that now. We have 3 minutes, and I would like to do that on the record. Well, what's going to happen with Stebbins Hewitt Consolidated? Because for the last 5.5 years I've been in office, their boilers does not work in the winter, and they have no hot water.
Javier, I'm sorry, do you have information on that particular development?
No, I don't have the details on that particular development.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
This is the problem. You're always unprepared when it comes to these hearings. You know we're going to ask you these questions.
Well, sir, with all due respect, sir, we don't have the plan for every single development in front of us at this point in time. We can certainly share with you the plan for each of your developments, but we don't have it prepared for this hearing to talk about every single development and the investments that we've made or are planning to make. Right? But I can assure you that a lot of effort has gone into preparing for this heat season, more so than even in previous years.
Councilmember Salamanca, can you name those 3 again?
They're Stebbins Hewitt Consolidated, Jackson houses, and Melrose houses.
So those 3 during this hearing right now, we're only asking for 3.
Yes,
it's in the same line. It's in the same line of questions, that I had before. What were the issues with the developments from the previous heating season? And knowing that you have all these, amazing statistics, what's happening now? Because that kind of a little bit of what,
And we will do our best to get answers to those specific developments before the end of the hearing. If not, we will certainly send you something in writing outlining the plan for these particular developments. But we'll do our best to try to get the information before the end of the hearing.
What's your policy on winterizing the boilers?
I'm sorry, winterizing boilers?
The boilers. Every year, like if someone owns a home, you get someone in to come and check your boiler, check your pipes to ensure that they're working. What is your policy to doing this at NYCHA Developments?
Sure, and I'm going to start, and then I'll definitely hand off to Javier. So as I mentioned earlier, we actually started our preparation for this heat season last February. We took advantage of some of the warmer days, and we started doing our inspections. Javier will talk more specifically about that. I do want to, again, thank the Federal Monitor because they really have been tremendous partners in helping us prepare for this heat season. And they have staff that are out there every day, along with our staff, doing inspections of the heating plants, finding issues, sending us reports and pictures. It really has been a tremendous value, so I do want to thank them publicly for that. Javier, if you could please speak to the council member about the preparedness and what you do.
So the preparedness involves our annual overhaul and inspection process that we perform on the boilers. And what we do is we take them apart, open them up, clean them internally and externally, lubricate them and replace the worn parts, and make any follow-up repairs that are required on that piece of equipment. Then
Time is expired.
So once the staff is done with that process, supervisor comes out, inspects that work to do a sort of like a QA inspection on it, and point out any other areas that require additional follow-up. The additional follow-up can be a piece of pipe that may need to be replaced, an equalizer line that houses the water leveling devices on the boiler, or it could be boiler welding on that boiler that needs to be done, for which we have contractors to do. And then once that follow-up is done, the boiler is put back online. It gets hydrostatically tested, and a team of burner mechanics comes out and does a combustion analysis on our larger boilers to ensure that it's running efficiently, and then it's put back online.
Madam Chair, may I ask a quick follow-up question? Thank you. Thank you, Javier. So my question is, this maintenance work is performed to every boiler at every NYCHA development in the city of New York?
Yes, it is.
Once a year, this is done.
Once a year, yes.
And this is documented. Like, we can sit down one day and I can go visit, and you can show me with documentation that every boiler in the city of New York once a year gets maintenance.
We have a PM work order that the staff fills out.
All right. And then my last question is, how many boilers do we have in total for all NYCHA developments?
Hold on. Just give me 1 minute. Bear with me, okay?
While Javier's looking for that, Councilmember, I do have an update on at least one of the 3 developments that you mentioned, Jackson. Right, that is in phase 1 of the state-funded projects. It's in design build. So we'll get back to you with a more solid date when we expect completion. But that one is funded and it is in a pipeline.
Okay. Hi. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I want to answer your question. So conventional boilers, which are the larger boilers, we have 710. And the smaller package boilers we have 642. And I'm sorry, my math was a little bit off. Just give me 1 minute. Total of 1,352 boilers is what we have.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to the follow-up and the follow-up on the questions that I had regarding my 3 NYCHA developments that every year suffer from having access to hot water and heat during the winter seasons. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to
Just
speak.
real quick, Councilmember Salamanca, you're okay with any follow-up at all with the Jackson? That they're in a design build process, or you're?
I mean, he can tell me he's on a pipeline. We all know what the pipeline means in NYCHA. You know, it's probably not going to occur for some time. But I'll allow them to follow up properly.
Right, and if I can add too, we just took a look at last year's heat outages. For Stebbins Hewitt, there were 2 unplanned heat outages lasting 10 hours. That was last heat season. Melrose had 2 unplanned heat outages restored within 5.8 hours. And Jackson, we did not have any unplanned heat outages last year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I know you're done, Salamanca, I understand that. But just real quick, Vito, because those are the issues that we have in the district, across the district, and I keep hearing it over and over and over. It may not be the development, but it's those individual apartments. Could it be an issue where there's a problem with like a piping and getting to an individual apartment? Because I hear from the same residents every year, and it's been an ongoing issue, and Brian knows my issue in Brownsville houses with those same individual unique apartments.
Yeah, no, Chair, look, absolutely. There could be issues within the apartment. I mean, what we're talking about really here is we're replacing the heating plants. And what we need to kind of focus on and have been focused on is all the ancillary parts to the system, right? The distribution system in particular, right? And so, yes, the new heating plants are fantastic, but we need to kind of focus on how do we distribute the heat from the heating plant to the apartment. And that's going to require major capital investment. It means going into every apartment, replacing steam lines, right? So it's a major undertaking. Going back to the integrated IVR system, that has really helped us identify the issues that you're talking about, like very specific to and unique to apartments. Right? Oftentimes, it's nothing more than replacing a radiator valve or a steam valve, right? Which has helped us tremendously. But again, the reality of it is that we need in excess of $70 billion. Right? We need to actually go in and replace the infrastructure of our buildings, the distribution point from the heating plant to the delivery in the apartment.
You said
70 billion, I think, is Brian. Correct me if I'm
How
wrong.
did we go from, we went from 38 billion, now we have 70 billion already?
No, we're still at 40, but the national number, the national number is 70 billion. But
Wait a minute.
Yeah, we need more. We need a lot of money.
Peter's got big plans. He's got.
Yeah, I mean, look, of course I do. I would love to see all of our systems replaced.
So true.
Chair, while I have the opportunity, I did tell you that I would get back to you on a question that you asked me. I do have the information now. So it had to do with the My NYCHA app.
Yes.
I could give you some quick numbers. So currently we have 111,855 distinct users, right, representing 92,756 unique apartments. Right, and that's an increase over same time last year. Last year at the same time we had 102,820 users. Right, and they represented 86,820 unique apartments. So we're doing much better. We're getting more residents to sign up for My NYCHA app. We've made a number of systems upgrades to My NYCHA app. It does provide for real-time updates on issues. So we encourage all of our residents. It's fantastic that we're up to almost 112,000. We'd like to see all of our residents sign up for My NYCHA app. So the more that we can all do to encourage folks to do that, it's a fantastic tool.
Okay, thanks for that information. So moving on to third-party vendors. During the February 6, 2018 hearing, the Chief of Staff of Property Management, Kathy Pennington at the time, stated that the transfer of 69 developments to a third-party management system would enable NYCHA staff to increase focus on the remaining boilers in the portfolio. So today, how many boiler rooms are managed by a third-party vendor?
Javier?
In number and percentages.
Sure.
Right now it's 53 in total that are managed. We have 2 third-party contractors. First one is National Grid. They have 30 boiler rooms, and the second one is Georges Hall. They have 23.
That's as of today, Chair. We are looking to see if we gained efficiency by assigning some additional heating plants to those 2 vendors, but that's where we stand as of today.
Okay, that's what percentage of your buildings, of your rooms?
Wow, I would have to do
Just quick.
that somehow.
Okay.
Yeah, while Javier
All right.
does that, I think it's important to note too that even though we did move these heating plants over to third party, conversely, we also increased our headcount. Right, so it's not as if we reduced our in-house staffing levels. We've actually increased our in-house staffing levels. So we reallocated those staff to other developments, but we also increased our staffing.
Okay.
Javier, you've got the percentages?
It's that's
Gonna take
moving
over.
on from that. Looking at last heat season, how many heat and hot water orders and outages were in developments that were under a third-party management system?
Very good question. Overall, they had a total, now this is a total heat work orders. Total amount of work orders was 51,265. That's both heat and hot water. 36,948 were for heat and 14,317 were for hot water.
Okay. And can you explain how does NYCHA track the performance of the third-party vendor? And how do you compare that, like the boiler rooms managed by the third party to the boiler rooms that are managed by NYCHA?
So the way we track, let's start with the way we track it first. We track it the same way we track ours. Maximo and the two key performance indicators that I mentioned earlier, Maximo and the CHAZ alarm. These developments are subject to that as well. Residents can make work orders just like they can at any other development. So naturally, if we see a spike in the work orders at any of these sites, then we're gonna ask the vendor what's going on. And if we see a CHAZ alarm, they also, the vendors being they also get the CHAZ alarm and they know to respond to those CHAZ alarms. When we don't see a response, we communicate with those vendors directly. So we track their performance the same way we track.
How long is the wait time between like looking to see the response and then saying, okay, let's just step in?
Well, we look for something within the hour from that. And if we do see a spike in the work orders through my heat test, as I said before, the heat test operates 24 hours a day. And so when we do see the spike, we communicate with them right away. It's also important to point out that during the normal course of the day, when we see a spike, we'll communicate with property management first to confirm that there's an issue. After hours, then we're communicating directly with the third-party vendors, and we're using our roving teams to also confirm that there is a problem at those sites. Okay, so when we communicate with the development staff during the normal course of the day, that's 8 to 4:30, they find an issue, we require that vendor to be there within that hour, and normally they are, because they're either within the area or within that boiler room.
Okay. So when someone shows up to the apartment to do a check, can you just explain what that looks like? So is it a member of a third-party vendor team and a member of your team? What does that look like?
So the way that works, it's property management staff that visit the apartment. The third-party vendor does not visit the apartment. They manage and maintain the equipment in the basement and in the boiler room. But let me just point out that before we went into the third-party agreement with the contractor and providing them with the portfolio that they have, we ensured that the development staff was trained on what to look for when they go into an apartment and inspect working off of a work order that was generated by the resident, a heat complaint in this. Train them on what to look for and how to correct any condition that's related to the in-unit equipment. And once that's done, if the problem does not correct or the problem is bigger than just the apartment, then the vendor gets involved. And at that point, if there's a service disruption that's related to the equipment, then we create the service disruption outage work order.
Okay. So and that infamous question about the log books in the boiler room. Can you just speak a little bit to what's happening now with the log books in the boiler room? Who's writing in the log books? And does NYCHA have plans to replace the boiler log books with the handheld devices, modern technology?
So let's
get over here.
Like three questions in that one statement. So we'll start with who writes in the logbook. Anyone that visits the boiler room writes in the logbook. Primarily the boiler operator. That's the individual that's in the plant that's there to perform the safety checks and all the blowdowns that must be recorded in that boiler room log, right? And then your second part of your question is related to whether or not we're going to move away from a logbook. Is that right? Did I understand that right?
Yes, but going back to the logbook too, just like when we're talking about in the context of a third party vendor and who's doing what, just trying to get a sense of, so the information is given to the property management staff or the person that's working for like a NYCHA employee. Is that the only person that's touching the logbook, or?
Well, with the third party vendor, their staff, their boiler operators are the ones that are writing in the logbook. And as I said before, anyone that visits that boiler room for whatever reason, whether they're just performing a visual inspection or checking up on an employee that might be working in the boiler room, also has to record the reason for them being in that boiler room in the logbook as well.
Okay.
Chair, when I go to a boiler room, the staff asks me to sign the logbook as well. Right? And the book is required by both local as well as state regulation.
Okay. I was just wondering, just as you were talking, remembering that there's that infamous, the data and information that's being put into the logbook and transcribing that into like the Maximal system, or if there's just conversations around that.
Sure. Well, a lot of the information resides in both places. So obviously, if it's related to a repair, then it's in Maximo as well. But again, the logbooks are required. And we just confirmed again that at both the local as well as the state level, they are still required to actually have a bound book in the boiler room.
Okay, and I just got a note here too that.
I'm sorry, that was background.
Going back to the conversation around the individual apartments and the possibility of just needing to replace a valve, or just trying to figure out why those individual apartments may not have heat and hot water. If you look at Fiorentino as an example, Fiorentino received new boilers, right?
Right.
But no valves in the apartments. And because the windows are old and lack insulation, the fact that they have a new boiler doesn't necessarily, it's good, it's needed, but it may not help the individual residents in the individual apartments actually feel the new boilers because of all those other issues in their apartments. And so that goes, I guess, back to what you were all saying around, you have the boilers, but you have all these other issues related to it. And I just wanted to point out Fiorentino as one of those. And the fact that Fiorentino is listed as one of the developments for direct funding and to address those issues, it's not just boilers, it's everything else.
Sure,
So
we'll look at this as both the windows as well as the valves in the apartments, and we'll get back to you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. But anything like just your level of expertise and experience to speak to Fiorentino? Not to do any kind of investigative research, but just your experiences and to say, okay, well, if we had this, the families there would have no complaints.
Fiorentino's, sorry, Vito. No, Fiorentino, I think, as you know, council members, are very high needs development. The capital needs are very high, and that is why we are looking to transfer it over to PACT. It has issues from the roof to the windows to the if you see there's scaffolding, so there are brick issues there, as well as the heating system. It's a small development with a lot of needs.
Okay, because you see, so if you have this major so the boilers are needed, right? That major investment is needed, but just trying to figure out what else so that the family inside that unit or that development could feel this massive investment in this building. And so is there a need to have, if you've replaced the boilers, for there to be a weatherization contract at the same time, because you know that that would address that one concern?
I think this is the frustration over the way we've looked at capital, because the way we get money, right? So we get money to replace like one thing. We get money to replace boilers, or we get money to replace roofs, or we get money to replace, do brickwork. But really what is needed is to comprehensively take care of the issues at a development. In order for the folks in Ferentino to say, like, we feel confident that you're not going to have issues, is by taking care of all of those things, right? And so when we're looking at the federal money that we possibly could be getting, we're not going to be looking at, doing one component at a time. We're going to be looking at, addressing all those issues, and then we can feel confident that, saying that, yes, when we get a new boiler, you're also going to have new windows, and you're also going to have a roof that is, in good shape. And so the building's going to hold the heat in, and you're not going to have, the new boiler acting well, but it's going out the window, literally.
Yes.
Which goes back to our big need.
Yes, all roads lead to roads. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I'd like to have like an example. We have been joined by Council Member Gibson. So moving into gas outages. How many gas outages are currently active on NYCHA right now?
As of today, we have 61 gas outages that are impacting sorry, bear with me for a second. There we go. We have 61 gas outages impacting 2,454 apartments. Now, when I say gas outage, Chair, it could either be, again, an apartment, in one case, a line of apartments, a building, and I don't believe we have any full developments, but we do have buildings that the entire building is currently experiencing a gas outage.
And when you say 61 outages, across how many developments is that?
Can you give me that, Marcelo? How many developments? Yeah, all right, well, we're getting that number for you right now.
Okay. And what is so I know there are different types of gas outages. So what is the main cause of gas outages right now? What's the main cause?
Sure, and I will start, and I will ask Cal Bruno to jump in and assist here. I mean, basically, Chair, what we're looking at, it's a gas leak that's been reported either to us, to the utility company, or to the fire department. And because of the age of our buildings, and most of our gas pipes are still the original gas pipes, it's impossible to isolate where the leak is with the shutoff valve. So it would require then a shutoff of the entire building. If there is a valve for a riser, then we're able to isolate it to a line of apartments. Right? And then also there's the local law 152 that was passed that requires all owners to do inspections of their gas lines every 4 years. And a number of our current outages are related to local law 152 inspections, which are proactive inspections. Right? So we actually have a contractor that performs these inspections for us. If they detect a gas leak, then we have a period of time to respond to, or if we can't isolate the leak, then we have to do a shutdown. So right now, of the total number of gas outages, 10 of those are due to local law 152 inspections.
And when you have those, the ones related to the local law inspections, what's the time frame of there being a gas outage? If there's nothing, if there are no flags from that outage, or, you know, that would require you to trigger something else?
Yeah, sure. Cal, do you want to speak to the chair's question about the?
And just to paint a picture, do the inspections usually lead to?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, Cal could give you the details. And Chair, I'm sorry, before Cal jumps in, you asked the number of developments impacted. There are 51 developments that currently have gas outages.
So the 61 outages represent 51 developments?
Correct.
Okay.
Sure. So in response to your question, so as we're doing a local law 152 inspections, and there's any evidence of a leak, whether it's smell or something that leads us to testing it right away, we immediately shut down for safety purposes, right? So any leak at all, whether it's a single riser, an apartment, and or a building, gets shut down. So the inspections, this proactive approach has helped us really look at other conditions that are not leaking that allow us to make other kind of repairs to prevent leaks. But we've experienced 10 active leaks that we've shut down, and we're, treat it once it's shut down like any other gas leak, because it's gas and because of the utmost attention it gets because of safety. We immediately shut down, we isolate the line, and then we go through a series of steps to start to test and repair and replace the pipes, and then we test them once again before we restore the gas.
Okay, so purposes of the residents being able to, and also my colleagues, understanding the difference in how gas can be restored, can you just go through just a timeline? Because some restorations will take 6 months and some can be 90 days or 3 weeks. So can you explain what happens?
Yeah, I'm gonna just go through like the series of steps, pretty much the way it happens for all gas house. And then if there's any specific questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Basically, it starts with smell of gas is reported and it gets investigated. So then either the gas line or the entire building, if necessary, is shut down. A scope of work is created by our plumbing supervisors, and they're sent to what we have a licensed master plumber that handles all the oversight and all the filing related to any gas work. The licensed master plumber prepares an asbestos scope of work and gives it to our asbestos investigation unit. Our asbestos
Okay, stop right there. Timelines.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So timelines. Smell gas triggers this inspection. What's the timeline between the smell of the gas and then the inspector coming out to do the research?
Right. So any work order or any report of small gas is considered an emergency. We have supervisors, maintenance workers at every development. Those folks go out immediately to investigate immediately, right? Once they confirm it's a leak, and they isolate the line on the spot. They either shut down a valve if it's available to that riser that's leaking, and if not, they'll shut down the whole building. They immediately isolate the line, and then they call our supervisor of plumbers to come and isolate it even better. They either separate it or lock it down to make sure that nothing can happen until testing and repairs are made.
Okay.
Councilwoman, if I can, I think to your question too. So for 2021, we've been averaging 96 days to restore gas service from the time of an outage. That's down from last year, where the average was 116 days. But as Cal's, talking about, it's a very
so Cal was just, so he stopped at the inspection part, right? And then was going to go into
Sure, he could go through the whole process.
Yes, I wanted to get that understanding because when you just said average time 96 days, again, sometimes it'll be 3 months, sometimes it'll be 6 months, right? And then we have residents that's complaining about a little more, And so,
Sure. So, so right now,
but I'm just trying to get a sense of what's the difference.
right. And if I can, before Cal goes back to the process, of the 61 that we have right now, only 2 of them are over 6 months. And both of them have passed DOB inspection. So we hope to have the services restored in a few days. Right. So those are the outliers. That's not the norm.
Okay.
Right? On average, it's about 3 months. Right. But Cal, I'm sorry, please go back to the process.
Yeah, and some of the factors that affect the time it takes to restore is, of course, the size of the building, right? So how many residents live there? The bigger the building, the more pipe you have to replace, the more residents you have to access to get into apartments. It's also the asbestos investigation that gets performed. Sometimes you have to actually do abatement. So that adds another step. You have to do the abatement before you could start replacing the pipes. So definitely the size of the building and number of residents that live there, the asbestos investigation, and then sometimes it's really the configuration of the pipe itself can add additional time in order to replace it.
Okay. So for
Okay.
purposes of using this as an example,
I'm sorry?
let's talk about, I was gonna say Park, what's the one, Brian? 1636 Park Place?
Is it the,
I'm sorry, which one are you?
I think it's, is that Park Rock?
Park Rock is, yes, Park Rock, yeah.
I think it's 1634 Park Place.
Park Rock. I don't see any current gas outage.
Is it Lakes and Hughes? Lakes and Hughes had a very long outage too. One second, let me just look, 1 second.
Again, right now, the oldest outage that we have is impacting 3 apartments at Brook Ellen. And again, that passed inspection. So we do expect that that should be restored shortly. That's the oldest gas outage that we have. And again, three apartments are involved there. Chair, I just want to go, Cal, what Cal described to.
Crown Heights. Crown Heights.
Crown Heights. Okay.
Crown Heights.
Yeah. It requires that we get into every apartment multiple times. So there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen with our residents, and we work closely with our TA leadership. We work closely with property management, because again, it does really require multiple access. I'm sorry, Crown Heights. The only gas outage that I see right now, Crown Heights, 1646 Park Place. Right, it's one building, 25 apartments, and the gas outage was reported on September 7th. Right, there was a broken gas valve in an apartment that resulted in the gas outage, and it is currently assigned to a vendor. I can get you more details on when we expect to have services
Okay,
restored.
so you'll get back to me on the details, but can you just explain that process? So they called September 7th. There was a gas outage. I know the apartment. There was an issue. She actually called the fire department. Someone came in. They closed it, and so and they had to shut down the entire line, right? And
It
so,
looks like, yeah, yes. Go ahead, Cal.
Yeah, I was gonna say the process in general, and it would apply there too, but we could provide the specifics if, given a little time, is that once we make the line safe by shutting it down and isolating it, then we have to, we work with our asbestos unit to go out and do an asbestos investigation. If there's any abatement that's needed, they perform the abatement and then let us know everything's clear to do physical work to the gas line. If no abatement is needed, they provide us that information, and then we file the work with the Department of Buildings. We request a permit. That usually happens immediately. That's never a slowdown. Once we get the permit, we can physically do the work, right? We've gotten clearance that there's no asbestos that we're going to impact. We've gotten the Department of Buildings permit. Now we start the physical work. So now we access the units. We put out notices. We conduct meetings to make everyone aware of the work that we want to do. And we actually physically replace the line, the gas line, in each unit. In doing so, we obviously disconnect the stoves to start, and then we put a whole new line in. And once that line has been completed, what we do then is we pre-test to make sure that that line that we just installed, that it's holding pressure, there's no leak. Once we're satisfied with that pre-test, we then we work with the Department of Buildings, and they come out and they do a DOB inspection. Upon passing their inspection, they give us authorization to turn on the gas. We then work with the utility company.
So how long does it take to get the DOB to come and inspect from just an average time frame?
Yeah, I mean, DOB, they're out there. I mean,
yeah,
we've had no delays at all.
Okay.
Yeah,
The buildings
I would
department
say
has
that's
been
days.
fantastic partners.
That's days.
Yeah, that's a matter of days.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
at
so then
best,
we work-
at best.
Yeah. Then we work with the utility company. They come out, they do their own inspection. And then once everything's passed with the utility department inspections, they actually turn the gas on, and then our plumbers reconnect the stoves. And at that
So was it a
point, the
utility
resident-
company?
I'm sorry?
Okay, so there it is. Is it the utility company? Is that the time frame that's taking so long?
Well, I mean, it varies because every different component takes a number of days. There's several tests that are done. So I wouldn't say it's always one particular area. It depends on the size of the building. It depends on the complexity and configuration of the piping. And it also depends, obviously, on your ability to get in and do several different things in the residence apartments. You're getting in to disconnect the stove. You're getting in to run new piping. You're getting in to do the pre-test at times. And then you're getting in with the utility company because they like to spot check some of the apartments. And then finally, you're getting in again to reconnect the stoves. So we really require the resident to be home, 3-4 times during this process. And so all that takes time. Not that I want to say, none of this is something that the resident can help, but it just takes time, and that's what adds to the days. And going back to configuration, when you're doing a whole buildings, there's times that pipes run through basements and run through different rooms. So sometimes that adds a little bit of time because you're changing all the piping.
Okay, I was the reason why I mentioned Crown Heights is because it's a 4-story walk-up old tenement building. So it's not like a massive development like Langston Hughes that Brian mentioned a few minutes ago, that's 20-something stories, So I just was trying to get an understanding of, we have the same time frame and you have a short walk-up. That's a very small development, small building.
Right.
20 units.
So the
compared to
physical
this
work is
massive
less.
building.
Right, so I'm sorry. So the physical work is less because you have to change less piping, obviously, right? So there's time savings there. But all the other steps, the pre-inspection, the DOB inspection, the inspection with the utility company, and all that is still time consuming, and all that happens regardless of the size.
Right, and the asbestos investigation.
And if there's asbestos needed to be abated, you got to include that. Also, in some of our buildings, not a lot, are small, because of the configuration, some of the pipes sometimes are actually inside the wall. So it's called concealed, they're concealed piping. What we like to do if we come across that is we actually core drill and put the pipe in a new location to make it easier to inspect and to access. So we've also come across, although it's something that only happens very rarely, that the pipes are actually concealed in some of our older constructions, and we place them outside to future access and reference and inspections, and that also adds another step to the process.
Okay, and then so when I speak to National Grid, like about Crown Heights, I'm told that they're always ready to go in and do whatever it is that they need to do from their side, but it's DOB and NYCHA plumbers that are always the holdup. And so I'm just trying to get an understanding of how to streamline and I don't know, put some policies in place to help with the process.
I mean, we'll certainly have that conversation with NACRID. I mean, I was on a call with Con Edison last week. That doesn't seem to be the same issue with Con Edison. Certainly DOB is not a delay at all. They've been fantastic. And in fact, the commissioner has even offered, for some of these turn-ons to come out on a day's notice to meet our plumbers out there. So they've been great partners. NACRID, we'll have a conversation with them, similar to the conversation we had with Con Edison. Any way that we
just
can.
let me know, what do you think, just from your expertise and your just being in this field for so many years and hearing the concerns and the complaints, what are we doing wrong?
Chair, with all, I think 3 months average. I mean, look, for the resident, it's 3 months too long. On average, that's about what we had. Look, when I was at HPD, I remember dealing with privately owned buildings that had gas outages that far exceeded the 3 months. Again, as Cal indicated, it's a very labor-intensive process. I think we're doing well. I think we can certainly do better. The good thing about when we're doing the gas repipes is that we should not see, if there is, God forbid, a gas leak in any of those buildings in the future. Part of our scope of work is we're installing shut-off valves, right? So we can isolate where the leaks are. We don't have to shut down a complete building. So we're being smart about the work that we do in response to a gas outage. Again, I'm going to go back to our big ask, the billions. I would love to be able to say that we have the funds to come in and do a full gas repipe of every building. Because again, most of our buildings have the original piping in them. So that's like, if you ask me my wish list, that's on my wish list.
Okay. And I'm good. We're done with moving on. Thank you so much about the gas. Moving quickly to electrical outages.
Before we, excuse me, Chair, just before we move into this next set of questions, I just wanted to say a quick reminder to the members of the public that are waiting. Thank you so much for your patience. We will turn to you for your testimony as soon as the questions with the administration have concluded. Thank you again.
Okay. Electrical outages. How many electrical outages occurred in NYCHA in 2020?
Electrical outages 2020. I'm sorry, Chair. Just bear with me for a second.
Oh, wait, you know what? Before we go to electrical outages, one last question, or just comment. You can comment on this. What do you provide your residents when there is a gas outage?
Oh, certainly. So historically, we've only given residents hot plates, which made no sense because you can't cook a meal on a hot plate. Starting last April, we started purchasing slow cookers as well. And in fact, we've purchased over 10,000 slow cookers to date. And I want to thank one of our TA presidents who kind of gave us that idea. She did it for some of the residents when they experienced a gas outage, and I thought it was fantastic. So now we provide our residents with both a hot plate as well as a slow cooker, so you can prepare a full meal. Hot plates are generally delivered same day or day after, again, depending on access. And then the slow cookers follow, but we're providing both. We also provide residents with other services. Our family partnership and resident engagement do outreach. What we try to do is, if a resident receives Meals on Wheels, we'll work with our partners at DFDA to increase the food delivery. If a resident qualifies but is not signed up, we encourage them to sign up. We also work with our partners at HRA to increase allowances for those residents that are might be receiving assistance from HRA. And we also provide our residents with a number of other sources. where they can, food resources, pantries and the like. So there's a lot of interaction with our residents, and I think the slow cookers, again, I want to thank one of our TA leaders. That was really a brilliant suggestion.
Do you
Something
have
that
to
we probably
request a
should have
slow
done.
cooker? Do you have to request a slow cooker, or is it
No,
something-
we offer every household a slow cooker. Yeah, you don't have to request it. We offer it.
Okay, and I will say that not everyone receives a slow cooker and had no idea about the slow cooker.
Again,
because-
it's something that we just recently started.
Yeah, I understand that, and that
Yeah.
and I'm only saying that because again, the Crown Heights development, I asked them what were they offered, I think like a couple weeks ago, and when I mentioned the slow cooker, some of the residents were excited about that, hearing that information for the first time. So I understand it's new. So, okay, moving on and just put in the next question, and this will be the end of my questioning. I don't think my colleagues have any other questions. But just putting into context the electrical outages, just knowing that over the summer, we had some serious electrical outages that were something due to the preventing a blackout and brownouts. The utility companies would step in and turn down the wattage, the voltage. And so I just want to get a sense from NYCHA, like just what are you doing? How are you preparing the communications that you have with Con Edison? And so I'm just starting out with how many electrical outages occurred in 2020? And you can also speak to 2021, this past summer season.
Sure. So we're pulling the numbers with respect to what we experienced this past summer. As you mentioned, voltage reductions are, I guess, unfortunately necessary in order to save a grid from a failure. It impacts not only NYCHA, but all properties. And primarily where it impacts us the most is elevator service. So when the voltage drops down to a certain level, our elevators don't operate. We had a really productive conversation with the vice president for emergency management at Con Edison. And that was just the beginning. I mean, we're continuing to have dialogue with Con Edison on how we can improve lines of communication. I would love for them to be able to give us sufficient notice before a voltage reduction so we can, one, alert our residents to the potential that there will be disruption of service. And then also, two, for us to safely bring our elevators out of service. And so this way they don't go out of service when the voltage reduction is implemented. That's going to take some time. They're committed to working with us. I don't know how much advance notice we'll be able to receive, but we do get a lot of communication also through the New York City Emergency Management Department. They've been great partners as well. But we need to do better at getting that information to us from the utility companies, from Con Edison. Like I said, the vice president for emergency management is committed to working with us, and we'll continue to work on that. As we replace our elevators, I think it's encouraging. As we do replace our elevators, the newer elevators do have a battery system, battery backup, that will allow for, when there's a voltage reduction, for the elevator to at least safely go down to the first floor. But that's part of obviously the replacement, the complete upgrade of an elevator. About 45% of our elevators are past their life expectancy. But as we start to replace elevators, we're using the newer technology that will account for some of these issues.
What's the percentage of, as we're talking about elevator outages and electrical outages, what's the percentage of elevator outages being due to the decrease in the voltage as opposed to just actual normal, just the issues with the elevator itself?
Yeah, Chair, that I know I don't have that information in front of me, but we can certainly get back to you with that. Right, that's a great question.
And when you mentioned the like the backup battery, and being able to at least go down to the first floor. Is it the elevator returning to the first floor because it's stuck because of the decrease in the voltage? Or are you saying the backup battery that will allow for the elevator to function, period, go up and down, or just down?
Yeah, no. So the backup battery is really only designed to allow the elevator to go down to the first floor safely, and then it shuts down.
Okay.
Right? But again, what it avoids are trapping any individual in an elevator between floors, right? And then it takes the elevator out of service in a way that's much more controlled than just the way the older devices are, where it just shuts down completely. Right? Restoration is a lengthier process when that happens.
And just going back to your conversations with the utility companies as it relates to electrical outages, have there been conversations around the possibility of when they do decide to decrease the voltage in a certain community or area, what would that look like for the NYCHA development in that same community where the entire community is, the voltage is being decreased? Is there like a plan or conversation around possibly, pressing a lever where, it excludes the NYCHA developments?
Unfortunately, and that's a conversation that we might want to have with Con Edison, but that was not, that didn't seem like to be possible. I would love to be able to say that NYCHA would be excluded from any impacts of the voltage reductions or power outages, but I don't believe that that's possible. Again, I think just advanced communication, even if they, and I know that oftentimes they don't have a lot of notice prior to a voltage reduction, but as if they can give us notice in advance, that would be a tremendous value.
Okay, all right. So with that, I am done with my line of questions. I would definitely say that, I look forward to being able to hear what's happening with not just your conversations, your ongoing conversations with Con Ed as it relates to outages and preventing those outages so elevators can work properly, but also any updated conversations with National Grid and DOB and everyone else, so that we can expedite the process of getting gas outages restored in less than 3 months, because we already know when we hit the holidays, we hear it, especially around Thanksgiving and Christmas. And also too, as we started out this entire conversation related to the preparedness for the winter season and having adequate heat and hot water for the residents, I appreciate where you are right now compared to where you were 3 and 4 years ago, and look forward to your ongoing conversations with the federal monitor to make sure that all residents receive the proper services that they deserve. And so with that, hold up. How many generators do you have, for the record?
How many generators?
Yes.
Could you get that from Erinice?
The
We'll
mobile
get you that.
generators.
Yeah.
Water.
I know how many mobile boilers we have. We're getting the number of generators for you
Okay.
right now.
We already spoke. Did I ask you about the mobile boilers?
Well, that was in my testimony. Currently, we have 62 either in place or on standby. Right. So again, when we're doing like a capital project to replace a heating plant, we install mobile units to run the system, but we also have mobile units that we purchased in the event of a building or of outage. We also rent mobile units. So right now there are 62 in total, and we have 7 more on order, 4 that we're renting and 3 that we're purchasing. And we should get them sometime in November.
Okay, and the generators, how many generators do you have in relation to the conversation we were just having with the elevators?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't believe that we have enough generators to All right, we have 28 generators of various sizes. Right, but again, depending on the extent of a voltage reduction or a power outage, if it encompasses a large geographic area, it's just not practical for us to install a generator at every one of those locations. So, and also depending on the duration. If Con Edison tells us that they expect to see the interruption restored in a matter of hours, it doesn't make sense for us to install a generator. So we do use them when there's going to be a prolonged interruption of service. But again, currently we have 28 in our inventory, and they're staged geographically throughout the 5 boroughs.
Okay. And right before I close, for the record, I just wanted to go back to the issue at in Brownsville Houses. So Brownsville Houses has a new BMS system that is not providing correct temperature reading. Thus, it sends false signals to the heating plant, essentially not providing adequate heating.
Javier, let's take a look at that.
We
I'm gonna say it one more
definitely will
time
dig
so
it.
people could know I'm addressing this. Brownsville Houses has a new BMS system that is not providing correct temperature reading. Thus, it sends a false signal to the heating plant, which essentially, heating plant essentially not providing adequate heating. So the problem with that particular building not providing adequate heat is because of the false reading that is sending to the heating plant.
Understood. So Javier and his team will coordinate with Capital and will do some troubleshooting here and see what the problem is.
Okay, because we're gonna figure this problem out. We're gonna figure it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, before the weather breaks.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. With that, thank you so much, everyone, and look forward
Appreciate
to
it.
working with you during the season.
Same. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now turn to testimony from members of the public. Please listen for your name. When I call your name, somebody on our staff will unmute you, and the Sergeant at Arms will set the timer to 3 minutes and announce that you may begin. I would now like to welcome Adalkiris Vargas to testify.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the sake of my connection, I'm going to turn off my video, but can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is
Hey, wait,
Adalkiris Vargas.
Ms. Vargas, before you stop, I see the clock is on and I want to actually stop the clock. And I just want to allow Ms. Vargas you've heard everything, you've been here the whole time.
Yes.
And so please, you can just move forward with your question without being stressed about a clock. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I actually have a written statement, so I'm just going to go through it as soon as I can.
Perfect.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So my name is Adalkiris Vargas. I'm a Harlem River Houses resident, and I'm also taking part of the We Act for Environmental Justice. And together we are fighting for healthy housing for all NYCHA residents. So I'm here today to testify on utilities in public housing and winter preparation. Over the past several years, vital utilities such as hot water, heat, and electricity has failed the NYCHA residents, including myself, for sometimes months. Utilities outages prevent residents from being able to fulfill basic needs such as cooking for their families, storing food when electricity is out, and regulating safe indoor temperatures during the summer and the winter as well. Sometimes it gets extremely cold or extremely hot. In my apartment, for example, gets extremely hot and there's no way to control it. And it's not safe to keep the windows open. Not only the outages in public, not only the outages, not only the outages of public health issues is also financial burden for some of the families, especially during COVID. When we don't have no electricity or gas, we are forced to provide for our families, and not everybody has that opportunity to do so. So I'm basically here to say that as a New York City housing resident, we are entitled and we deserve to have the same service and response as other public residents. And we deserve the same rights to be, to have a decent and healthy place to live. And we want to help NYCHA Constable to make sure that the response time and the preparedness for it, it's basically in point. That's basically what I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Which development are you in?
Oh, sorry. Harlem River Houses.
And do you use the My NYCHA app?
I actually do. I wish that it could be more, I don't want to say modern, but easy to get around, especially for older people. I don't think it's just the best thing to use. And also for myself, I have noticed that I have put tickets and sometimes they get closed and I don't get a notification or I don't get an update on the work order. So there's no follow-up on that. I don't know if they have, I mean, they do have our cell phones, our email, but there's no follow-up when there's an update on the work order. For example, we have really bad infestation of rats on the front of the building. I put a work order for that. And then I went back into the portal and the work order was closed.
Okay. So you heard a testimony about the work orders being closed as it relates to heating issues. Have you used the My NYCHA app and then turn around and, saw a work order possibly closed without addressing a heat or hot water or anything? I'm just trying to get an understanding.
Fortunately for me, I haven't had that case when it comes to, so what happens is basically when I don't have heat, most of the people on my floor, because my apartment building is very small. We only have 4 floors and 12 apartments per for the whole building. So when I put a ticket, by the time I turn around and come back home from work, we already have hot water or heat. It's already restored. So I haven't been to that position where I have to put a ticket and it hasn't been attended to. When I did the testimony, I did it overall for all NYCHA restaurants that I know. For example, my mom lives in NYCHA and she experienced not having heat for a few days or hot water.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for testimony today, and apologies for not having you on board to be able to testify before.
No, it's fine. I was here. I was listening to all the good information.
Okay. All right. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Audrey?
Yes, thanks very much. This concludes the public testimony. If we've inadvertently forgotten to call on anyone, please raise your hand using the Zoom raise hand function, and we'll try to hear from you now. Seeing no hands raised, I will now turn it back over to Chair Ampry-Samuel to close the hearing.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Sergeant at Arms, thank you for all that you do. So now that will conclude the New York City Council Committee on Public Housing hearing on October 12th, 2021.